Microtrending.
Welcome back. I'm Gabrielle, and you are listening to Microtrending, the podcast for anything that is having a moment for better or for worse. First of all, thank you for being here. We are back, audio and visual, if it matters, back to the video format as well. There is a lot that I want to talk about today. I'm going to have to hone it in and narrow it down. I do also, as promised, at least on Instagram stories, I do have some answers to user submitted questions, and I am humbly overwhelmed by the amount of questions. So I'm going to split it up between this episode and next, whichever ones I'm inspired to answer, but I will answer some of them today. Anyway, if you listened to last episode, I did get a little vulnerable about what has been happening work-wise in my life, and I know that I'm not alone. It's kind of like tough times for everyone, not only in corporate America, but literally everywhere. In terms of the work situation, that has not improved. In fact, it has gotten a little bit worse. But the only thing you can really control in these situations is your attitude. So I'm not choosing toxic positivity, but I am choosing acceptance for now, and I'm choosing to mind over matter the situation, and I'm not here to be Jay Shetty at you, but I'm really trying. So hopefully this doesn't lead to another crash and burn out. But this is all to say I'm not asleep right now. I am sitting up and in front of a microphone, so that is an improvement to me. In other news, if you are following me on Instagram specifically, I did finally put a substack out. There are 2 posts live right now. I'm planning on posting these free weekly posts on Friday. That's my goal, to give myself some time during the week to do that. As of right now, I do not have the paid subscription model up, but I will be adding that for, I think, some longer form content. Sometimes you just need to get the ball rolling, but I really don't want to set up something that I'm not going to be able to deliver on. And I also want to be choosier about what I'm putting behind that little subscription paywall. I basically just want to make it worth your while for spending any money, especially during these times. So TBD on that, but for now there will be free weekly content. Anyway, I will link to the Substack in the description of this episode, but my username is still saltlacroix there on Substack, but the name of the actual Substack is Salt on the Table. So subscribe now because it is free.
Microtrending.
The main thing that I want to talk about today is something that I posted to my story I think last week, maybe the week before, it was a Daily Mail article about Victoria's Secret wanting to be unapologetically sexy again and to redo the rebrand that they did. Have a lot of thoughts on that, and also kind of how it ties to the return to skinny culture of it all too, and some other stuff going on there. So we will get to that. But like I said, there are a lot of random things that I just feel I don't know who to talk to about these things. So that's why we're speaking right now. There's this other little celebrity news item that came across my desk, came across my For You page, and I'm fascinated by it because I don't know if it's fully, the why has fully revealed itself, and maybe there isn't one. And that is the actor KJ Apa. his like little alter ego music project that he's doing, Mr. Fantasy, which is him in a wig and some fake teeth. I need to know if you've seen this because the whole rollout of whatever this is frying me, including just like normal everyday people's response to it. And this isn't like a huge headline. It's not like the Taylor Travis engagement or anything, but it's gotten enough traction that I'm staring right now at a Teen Vogue story about it. And there are plenty of other just like celebrity news outlets that are asking the same question. This headline is KJ Appa Mr. Fantasy? The alter ego breaks his silence. This is what I was born to do. You can look this up for yourself, but let's back it up for a second because there may be people listening to this wondering who KJ Appa is. And I think that's fair. You might recognize his face. I mean, I think he's pretty well known at this point, but he was faux ginger Archie in Riverdale, that series. I think that was his breakout role. He's from New Zealand, I believe, and he's a good looking guy. The orange hair was not working for him, I don't think. And this Mr. Fantasy wig is not doing him any favors either. But I became aware of him from Riverdale. I gave it a shot. I think I watched most of the first season. I don't remember if I finished it or not, which means I probably didn't. But I watched it not because I was looking for like a soapy teen murder mystery, but because I grew up loving and reading Archie comics because my mom did. I remember getting the Archie comics from 7-Eleven and then like reading them at my grandma's house. I thought Archie was kind of a herb. He was kind of lame, but he meant well. Of Betty and Veronica, I definitely liked Veronica more because I am obviously naturally a brunette. And you know, when you're a young girl, you have two options for your future. There's only two types of girls, there's the blonde and there's the brunette. I thought she was kind of bitchy, but she had great clothes. So I was like, if there's a way to be like a nice Veronica, that would be great. And I was a Jughead girl. He was my guy. I low-key had a crush on Jughead. And I will say that a lot of the men that I have dated, which is not very many, but of them, up until a certain point, that's kind of the archetype. Okay? They got the nose, probably is, of the stoner variety, and looks good in a hat. And that's unfortunately probably still partially my type. But those were, when I look back, more boys than men. Okay, we've moved on. And Cole Sprouse probably killed my love for Jughead, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, Riverdale is where I knew KJ Appa from, and he's obviously had some roles since, including a very recent film role alongside Madeline Klein. But even though I haven't seen him in much, he has a very distinctive face. Like he has very big, bold features. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but I'm saying it because the notion of somebody looking at this fucking Mr. Fantasy musician, quote unquote, this performer, and not recognizing him as KJ Appa, open the schools. That's not right. Open the eye doctors. He even has the same tattoos, okay? The same arm tattoos. And I know things are obviously being fueled by PR and, articles being like, is it really the same guy? Is Mr. Fantasy actually Riverdale actor KJ Op? Fucking of course it is. Look at them side by. I'm scared. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm not doing a great job of explaining this because it's just, it frustrates me both on a like consumer level, but also just from like a branding, personal branding and PR standpoint. I should maybe just laugh at all this, but from what I can tell, how this rolled out was there was a decision made to do this like alter ego music project. And it might not even be like a music project. I hope that this is like a stunt for something else. Like if this is in service of some upcoming movie project or something else, I feel like that's forgivable. But he, I guess, just created another account that was like at I am Mr. Fantasy or something and is like pretending to be some British rocker trying to make it in America. That's his whole shtick. And again, the other way that I feel like this could be forgivable as a stunt instead of cringe, I feel, I don't really know any other way to describe it, is if the music were good. And some people probably like it, but if you watch it, tell me it doesn't remind you of Flight of the Conchords or like a PG SNL skit. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's like he wanted to be like Sebastien Tellier, who I don't even know very well, but that like the song Divine, like it's like that sort of vibe I feel like he was like maybe trying to go for, kind of mixed with Russell Brand's character from Get Him to the Greek, but like not as perverse. I don't, you just have to like watch it to see for yourself, but it just is so transparently someone acting and like doing a spoof. And I don't mean to shade Flight of the Conchords, like people, I love that, I think, and it was funny at a certain time, but it's just, it feels, this whole Mr. Fantasy thing does not feel 2025, which might be some people's preference. Obviously, things right now are not great. I guess the main thing is that it just feels way too manufactured. And the only nice thing I really have to say about it is that I'm relieved that it's not like an AI alter ego. Unless AI was involved in the production of this at all, I am relieved that it is, someone taking a creative risk as a human being. So I don't mean to throw all of it under the bus. It's just I get riled up when I see like clearly like manufactured, planted bullshit, even outside of the realm of just like political stuff. Like this is just annoying to me. Like if you're gonna do like an alter ego music project, like do it instead of just throwing on a wig and some fake teeth. Like that's embarrassing. Anyway, I don't have a segue into talking about Victoria's Secret. I don't think there's any parallel between us getting dumber and this headline, but maybe there is. There's probably a connection. But as I mentioned at the top, I did see this Daily Mail headline. I don't remember where I saw it. But the gist of it is that Victoria's Secret has made an announcement that they're pivoting back. Not completely, because obviously there was a lot of bad stuff going on in the past, but their plan is to say bye-bye to woke, quote unquote, and hello again to unapologetically sexy. And before anything else, I just want to know what something apologetically sexy would be. Think about it. I really feel like those are mutually exclusive In a way, I feel like they cancel each other out unless you are turned on by people apologizing to you. That's somebody out there. But the more that I do think about it, I think that maybe apologetically sexy, like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to cover up just a little bit. I think that was kind of the rebrand that they did in a way. And I don't remember exactly when that was, but they brought the fashion show back in 2024, and so it was leading up to that. I think it was sometime between 2020 and then it culminated in the fashion show that got a lot of not so positive press. I did have to look up another article to put some pieces together because I know that there was like the Humpty Dumpty moment of Les Wexner, a pal of Epstein, famously. His fall from the brand, his exit. There was some shady stuff happening earlier on with the brand. And then, of course, what came to light of Ed Razik, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, and his allegations. You've definitely seen his face before if you've like watched the Victoria's Secret fashion show or have seen any news about it. But yeah, kind of a piece of shit as an understatement. Many allegations, including literally groping, sexually assaulting a model in the not that distant past. Lots of toxic masculinity, again, an understatement, just casually behind the scenes for years. But I think what did get a lot of press and a lot of pushback, because there were some things that like just weren't known until later, but he like literally told on himself, and revealed his true beliefs and feelings. But the thing that he got a lot of press about was him saying that they had considered diversifying the fashion show, but instead were like, on second thought, no. Like when a server comes over and tells you these specials of the day and you're like pretending to consider those options and pretending to entertain it, and you're ordering buttered noodles like you do every time. So there was that. But his reasoning for not going forward with diversifying the fashion show is what remains fascinating to me, because he was like, and I found the quote, if you're asking if we've considered putting a transgender model in the show or looked at putting a plus size model in the show, we have. And then someone asked him, shouldn't you have transsexuals in the show? To which he then said, no, I don't think we should. The show is a fantasy. It's a 42-minute entertainment special. That's what it is. That's like saying that your fantasy is going to Disneyland. There is not a lot of novelty involved, Ed. Even if you haven't been to Disneyland, you've seen photos and videos. It's the same experience every time, and with the same cast of characters. Don't forget to buy a pair of ears or a signature pink and white robe, available to little gremlin you watching from your couch. Anyway, bullshit reasoning aside, as you can imagine, there was a changing of the guard. There was a rebrand at Victoria's Secret. And I don't want to knock it. I want to be very clear. I do not want to knock it in terms of casting. I don't think that was the problem with the rebrand. Victoria's Secret has, I don't want to say always, but the time I've been alive and been a customer at Victoria's Secret, they have had at a minimum some racial diversity. And I will agree that the majority of their most visible Victoria's Secret angels have been white, including like South American white, still white. There was a limit to how many like black and darker skin tone angels you saw on the runway and in advertisements. But there was some there. It wasn't giving like vineyard vines. I don't know. And I do think that the rebrand, a couple years ago did make good on the promise of improving diversity across the board, visibly in terms of size, with models like Ashley Graham. And I think there was at least one trans model, at least on the runway for the 2024 fashion show. So that's great. There was an effort, right? But where I'm confused is that the company is now saying that, hey, all the DEI stuff we did, the woke shit, that didn't work. They ordered woke, we cooked up some woke, and they sent it back. Proof that no one has an appetite for woke. They're just lying. Because apparently sales were up for a short period and then they just like fell off. So there was like some promise with the rebrand, some excitement, and then poof, not so much after that. And my brain is in a Wetzel's pretzel over here. That sounds so good right now. My brain is in knots because from what I saw, they took the sexy out of the product because of who they were styling. And that's fucked up. The brand itself went like slightly more modest, cozy girl. Might go to Panera and pick more than two because I'm feeling just a little bad. That was kind of the vibe. I think I said on my Instagram story that it was giving Target. And I stand by that. That is kind of what it looked like. Not as like lacy and fun. And if that's not you, that's fine. You can shop at Target. There are other options. Actually, don't go there now. But like, there are other options. I think Victoria's Secret like had some cachet and some personality as a brand. The personality got sucked out of it a little bit too. It was really just like a here damn rebrand from the lingerie to the actual direction of the photography. It was just not the unapologetically sexy and confident vibe that they were selling before, where you really thought like, hey, I could be a Victoria's Secret angel, whatever that means to you. And there is a pattern of this happening. I think this is a really visible example of this. And this is definitely not just a problem for Victoria's Secret. I think this is something that happens with other brands and just in other places too, that people outside of thin and especially thin white body ideals, they can technically sit at certain tables and people will point to them and say, hey, look at who we invited to dinner. You have to meet so and so. They are so accomplished and so brave. But then those same people who were invited to these tables are not allowed to order from the same menu. They're not afforded the same things that the standard invitee can have. And that is a clunky metaphor, which might actually play out literally in some instances. But that just seems like what happens when a brand overcorrects. I mean, it happens all the time, but especially when a brand overcorrects, they're like, look at all of these people that we're giving an opportunity to in a not tokenized way at all. And there are ways where this is more helpful than harmful. And I do want to say that there is obviously a plus still of paying and employing actual talent, actual human bodies, instead of having AI generate, a person of color with like certain physical characteristics so we can check a box, because that's absolutely happening. I'm telling you right now, it's already happening. Rather have people actually stay employed as talent than that. But there are ways where we can be better and, be a little bit more thoughtful and inclusive beyond just having the body on the page or on the screen or on the runway. Like, let's really think about the styling and what point you want to make with those individuals. But back to the overcorrection part for Victoria's Secret with the rebrand, it's possible that the like super sexy over the top shtick was getting a little corny. I will give them that. Seemed like the pink world and the regular Victoria's Secret world were kind of like blended into one. And things have become quite literally beige over time, over the past however many years, even in like lingerie and loungewear. And you can for sure blame Skims in part for that. But they didn't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. A wonderfully evocative idiom. It seems like it's not clocking to them that they can have someone larger than a sample size in a matching set that exposes their stomach, even if their stomach is not a washboard, instead of them concealing it either with their body or with more fabric. Sometimes people's fantasy, if you want to think about Victoria's Secret as a fantasy, is being able to see someone who looks like them in a fantasy product. The fantasy isn't being a size 2. So we're using the term fantasy really just fast and loose across the board here. But I don't think that they're really considering their audience and who's actually dropping some serious money at Victoria's Secret. Anyway, when I posted about this Daily Mail article with a very abbreviated version of the rant that I just went on, somebody did DM me, and I did get their permission to anonymously share this. So I'm going to read their DM to me, okay? As a woman of a certain size, I think about this a lot. And by this, they meant sexy and inclusivity being mutually exclusive, which I think Victoria's Secret is deluded into thinking is the case. In my own experience, when you're a certain size, there is a hyper-specific, hyper-feminine brand of cis-heteronormative sexiness that you're allowed to perform, and very little is available outside of it. You can dress as a retro pinup or goth-flavored retro pinup, and that's about it. Almost everything else that caters to you is sauceless and beige and purposefully unsexy. And thank you to that person for sharing that with me. I really appreciate them sharing that and knowing this, because I can yap on and on forever about the injustice that I'm like perceiving from my perspective. But I also know that as a thin person, I'm not seeing the same rack being cleared metaphorically of options, right? But I've also seen a little bit of what she's talking about in terms of the like limited styles, and I don't know why some of it is like a throwback to pinup stuff and like rockabilly. If somebody knows more about this, let me know. But it's really bizarre how few the options are, because it will be like kind of campy like that, or from what I've seen, or like as beige as can possibly be, or like uglier versions, like fuller coverage, stuff that looks like Skims. Like there's gotta be stuff in between for all sizes. And then we should also be seeing the bodies represented wearing that stuff. It's just dehumanizing in a way. I know that sounds really dramatic when, like, in the context of like defending your right to be sexy and wear lingerie that makes you feel good. This is not one of the top 10 issues that we're dealing with right now, but it is definitely symptomatic of like who we as a society deem to like be able to maintain a certain sense of dignity and a certain sense of empowerment. We're not extending that to everyone, even though we're saying that we are. That's not actually happening.
Microtrending.
Anyway, I do have similar shade, on a related note, for the Abercrombie rebrand. Very similar. And I don't think it has fully like blown up in their face, because at the end of the day, they've just become another option. I think Victoria's Secret has had a more distinct brand and they haven't evolved a lot, but Abercrombie obviously had their peak and then lots of scandal, kind of fell off the map and then came back with their rebrand. And now Abercrombie just is in its 2.0 form. There was the fierce cologne, tight knit tops, low rise jean Abercrombie and Abercrombie Kids brand of the 2000s. That was one version, 1.0. And then there's the post lawsuit rebrand. I highly recommend the documentary on Abercrombie. I feel like it didn't really get into everything, but it was still a good watch. But whenever that rebrand happened, I think it was successful and cute for maybe a year or two. And I know some people are like still shopping there. But I do think that the quality of the clothes, along with everywhere else that you're shopping, even brick and mortar now, seems to have gone downhill. Like construction wise, it's not really living up to the price point, I don't think. But this was also an instance where they were like, well, since you hated us being so sexy and popular kid coded, we're gonna really reel it back and extend our sizes so you can feel better about yourself. Yeah, the principal told us that we have to let you sit here now. It feels a little like that. It's really, unfortunately, kind of indistinguishable from stuff you can find at Gap. And no shade to Gap, I'm just rarely inspired by their designs. Madewell, Old Navy, Aritzia. None of these are terrible, like necessarily on their own, but I think we've reached this just like singularity almost of, here is a place where you can buy clothes if you are within this certain age range. And it is literally beigeification. They took the sexy out of Abercrombie and we got the beige version now. Some people are totally happy about that. They never liked Abercrombie 1.0, and Abercrombie 1.0 problematic in many ways, but there's just no personality anymore. I'm sorry. Anyway, at the same time as this Victoria's Secret Renaissance is happening, like right now, there's also obviously in the background the resurgence of skinny. I don't love the term heroin chic. I feel like we need to leave that where it belongs in the past. But this has kind of come back around in the past few years. And many would say it never went away, and that's definitely true. especially in certain circles. But we've obviously had the Kardashian body on a pedestal for a long while. And even saying that sounds crazy because there's a whole other topic of body optimization by means of borrowing ethnic features going on there. But because that became the Kardashian body type, because it involves like modifications, because it became so accessible, it became cheap, quote unquote, and then has become less desirable again. And by less desirable, I don't mean necessarily by men, because they definitely like looking at that body shape, right? But like less desirable in the mainstream and as it is marketed to women in a sick way. There's always this cycle. And this is what people mean when they talk about people trying on, especially celebrities, like trying on and then discarding Black culture and aesthetics. And not exclusively Black culture and aesthetics, but like most visibly and like predominantly. And there are some real perpetrators that are not just the like Rachel Dolezal. That's like a little bit of a different situation. Or Alabama Barker, whatever the hell she's doing now, I can't keep up and I do not choose to. But it also seems to be about like greater cultural power shifts. And whether you want to call it Operation Beige or just good old fashioned white Christian nationalism / fascism, the BBLs are getting dissolved recently. Already thin people who do not need to, are dabbling in GLP-1s, Eurozempics, etc. And now we're back to getting boob jobs over butt ones. If you have both, I'm sorry, but the bottom half has to go now. It's not trending anymore because body parts are trends, if you haven't heard. And it is all so fucked up because in a perfect world, there would be body neutrality. I think I've talked about this a little bit before. There is an episode where I talk a little bit about body optimization versus body positivity, but like body neutrality, people talk about this like that would be great. You know, you could exist in the body most comfortable to you, ideally, entirely 100% outside of anyone's standards, just existing in your body without a care. Straight men do this all the time. So that is, of course, an option to anyone, including you. But I will say it has become harder in some ways to love the skin that you're in when not only is there like unfettered access, obviously, to images of other people and their bodies. Comparison is the thief of joy. There's that, but we also have to, we talk about that all the time, but I think we also have to consider how unhinged people have become commenting on others' appearance. Like, it's not just anonymous trolls anymore. People will tell you that you look like shit or specific opinions with their whole profile picture and Bible quote and American flag in bio. It's all right there. There's also this faux concern sort of comment that people will post where they think that they're helping when they're really just being mean for no reason, that's like another flavor of comment that is out there now. And I think we've just become a little too comfortable speaking on people's appearances without knowing anything else about them. So it's not helping the efforts that we've made in terms of body positivity. It's just I feel like we've taken a few steps backward in the past couple of years. You can be the most confident person in the world. You've really worked on yourself. And people can still like spit on you digitally. And I think we need to get better, because skinny is slithering its way back into being synonymous with sexy. And that's a problem. And that's not to say if you are a very thin person that you also don't deserve to feel sexy or be sexy, but there is a problem when a specific body type becomes, again, synonymous with desirability. Doesn't matter what the body type is, it's illogical. But if desirability means something to you, then logic is not always going to be there. You're just going to be in pursuit of being whatever the desirable body type is. And you will receive marketing as such to become whatever that body type is. And I think that is kind of exactly the cycle that we're back in now, which is a little scary, but not surprising. I feel like being like healthy and quote unquote fit, like the fitness influencer stuff, I think that had a moment. But it seems like that doesn't even matter that much anymore as long as you're skinny, which is why a creator like Liv Schmidt, if you've heard of her, if you haven't, you can look her up. I do not recommend following her or support anything that she's doing, but all of this makes sense. But her success, her like minor success as an influencer, is made possible by the tides turning back to the like super skinny ideal, because she is not remarkable by any like New York City influencer standards. I don't know where she's from originally. It's definitely not New York. But what has made her stand out is that she has this like unapologetically pro skinny brand, which is this nebulous skinny society group that she is running, where she basically gives tips on how to like eat very little throughout the day and get like a crazy amount of steps in, just like insane advice that you should never follow, including how to like not look like a pig in front of your boyfriend. There's a lot of misogyny like sprinkled in too, very progressive, very much not promoting disordered eating to teens at all. And thankfully, she has been soft canceled or hard canceled, I don't know, multiple times. But, like a hungry cockroach, she just keeps coming back. And the way that she defends giving skinny tips really reminds me of the mostly women who were pushing back on people calling out Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle campaign. The people who were like, well, what's wrong with blue eyes and blonde hair, and celebrating that and being proud of that? What's wrong with wanting to be skinny? And like, it's hard, as you know, to argue with stupid, to point out specific traits having always been the white Christian nationalist standard. Let's take a look at history. But someone like Liv Schmidt, who I know idolizes the Victoria's Secret angels of yore. She is symptomatic of what is going on currently. Um, and in an even worse way, in a more direct way, she's actually putting people's health at risk. So I wish the worst for her non-career, and I hope she gets deplatformed because we don't need her accelerating um, any of this other stuff that's going on. But I do think it's fair if brands are willing to, if they're brave enough to, this is so embarrassing for them, if they are brave enough to bring sexy back, not like Justin Timberlake, I fucking hate that song, but like if they can bring the confidence and the sexy back to the brands that they thought that they had to toss out, because how dare a woman of a certain size feel as sexy and confident in her skin as Adriana Lima? Like, we can't let that happen. Like, if they can just get that worm out of their brain, I don't think society's going to heal, but it's like a baby step in that direction. I think there's some dignity that just needs to be afforded and needs to be restored. And I don't know why I've just like gotten heated about this, but it just feels so unfair in such a silly way. I know it's not that silly, but like compared to other things. But Victoria's Secret is a mall brand that I loved. I bought so much stuff from over the years, especially like the pink stuff and like the fragrances. I don't go in there very often anymore, but like I had despite their evils, like I had a positive association with the brand, and it just kind of bums me out that they don't see every woman of every size as like deserving of the same things. That sucks. And they need to fix it. They're making a promise to become unapologetically sexy again. We'll wait to see.
Microtrending.
And Victoria's Secret, I hope you were listening to all that because I will be withholding my money until you respond. Anyway, as promised, I do want to do a little Q&A. I posted an AMA, within reason on my stories, but that was inspired by an email that I got from someone who I believe was another writer. It was such a like kind and heartfelt message, and they actually referenced Operation Beige in one of their Substack posts, which with credit and everything, I was truly honored to like see that. It warmed my heart, like made my week. But they also sent over some fun questions that I was going to just respond to their email with the answers, but I thought it might be a little more fun to answer them here. So I'm going to answer these to the best of my ability and then pick a few for now from Instagram. The first question is, if money were no object, what would you do with your time and where would you live? I think to give like a really good answer to either of those, I would have to think about it for quite a long time. So I'm already kind of messing this up. But in terms of where I would live first, I am quite happy, at least living in LA. But I would want my family in Northern California to move closer to me. So I would kind of want to stay put, but in a much nicer living situation, and then have my family nearby too. My sister's here, but have everyone that I love close to me. Um, that would make me happiest. And if money were no object, what would I be doing with my time? I would still need to be doing something creative. Honestly, I would probably be doing a lot of the same stuff I'm already doing, but with more funding. A girl can dream. But when I left classroom teaching, I did have the thought one day of opening up some sort of like arts enrichment for kids program, or even just like a creative writing tutoring program, something combining the arts and education, some sort of program or foundation or something like that. I know that sounds like kind of lofty, but I've always dreamt of combining the things that I like to do, which is the creative aspect of things, and then like mentoring or teaching, like some sort of like after school or a school in its own right, because we do need to open some more schools. Next, have you ever wanted to make music? What instruments would slash do you play? I have thought about this before, believe it or not, and don't tempt me. I grew up playing the violin. I played it for like 10 years. From like 8 to 18. I wasn't like taking lessons all throughout that time, but I was like an orchestra kid. I grew up playing the like Suzuki method, which if you don't know is where you kind of learn how to play by ear. And I had to learn how to read music at all later in order to like, read sheet music better for orchestra. And I absolutely like, I look back on that time very fondly. But as with any like serious hobby, there are so many of them. There came a point where the like pressure, and it wasn't even for my parents, but just like the pressure of like where you get to a certain point where you're like, am I going to be like first chair or second chair, or am I keeping up with the group? Having to like really put in more and more hours practicing an instrument. I can guarantee you there is at least one person listening to this right now who experienced the same thing. Like you have to have that like level of internal motivation uh, to do that, to keep going. And there were a couple of things that were working against me. One of them was I was starting to think that the violin was kind of lame compared to like playing the guitar, which is really sad because they're both beautiful instruments that deserve the same amount of love. So I did start playing the guitar as a small act of rebellion for that reason. And I also went to like a really like academically uh, rigorous high school. Like my high school was more challenging for me than my college experience. I know some people have that experience too. And I could not do both things at all. And so I kind of stopped doing the orchestra stuff. I only played in like orchestra pit at like high school like musicals at my high school productions. And then I brought my violin with me to college, and there were a couple opportunities to use that there in different ways. But yeah, there was a time when I was a lot more involved musically. I almost became a music minor in college too, because of all of the classes that I took, just because I was interested in it, like music history and all that. And I don't regret any of that. It was like a huge part of, I think, my brain and and who I am. In terms of whether I would ever make music or not, I think it'd be really cool to be involved with the production of music in some way. Songwriting, I did take a songwriting class that was really fun one time. I think that is something that interests me, but in terms of like actually like performing music in any way in the future, probably not. But songwriting maybe. Next question. How many book drafts slash ideas have you been sitting on? I know there's got to be at least one. That is very kind and generous as a question, and my answer is probably less than you think in terms of like solid ideas. I like writing for writing's sake, and I think I sometimes stop myself from getting too far ahead with an idea if I like don't think that I can go the distance. And so that works against me, I think. I think I need to be a little bit more forgiving with myself for just, starting with a seedling of an idea and seeing how much it will grow, instead of saying like, oh no, that's lame, or pick a new idea instead. But in terms of like bigger writing projects, I have a feature film screenplay that literally everyone who lives in LA has like at least one. That is something that I do have in mind, that I am making this reminder now that I need to work on, because I end up thinking about it more often than I actually work on it, and that's a problem. So need to fix that. Anyway, thank you again to the person who messaged me those questions. I am going to go through a few that I got in my DMs when I posted the AMA. I wish I could answer all of these. I'm just going to like choose a few for now, and then we'll save some of these for next episode, and then maybe even the one after that. First question is thoughts on Raya / other paid dating apps. I can't really speak to this because I haven't been on Raya, and I have not used other paid dating apps. I'm aware that certain dating apps have like features that you can pay for, and I think it's all kind of embarrassing if it's something that you're paying. I'm sure that it helps some people. The only thing I can think of that might be like worth paying for is if there's some sort of like membership involved that like affords you access to like singles events or something like that, where you're actually getting some like benefit beyond the app. Because if you're just paying to be able to like make your preferences a little bit more selective, or if you are paying to just like get more matches or something, I think that's lame to have like the in-app purchases and stuff for that. And I just don't think it's worth it, and it pisses me off. Also, it's always like free or like $30 or a month or some bullshit. I could be wrong. I'm not remembering correctly here, but it's just, I don't know. I would not want to be, I don't know. I personally don't think I would want to date someone who was paying for these apps. It's kind of an ick. No offense. But if it's working for you, congratulations. Next is, who is your favorite female comedian? I don't even have a favorite comedian. I think it's a genre that I love so much, and I feel like my, taste is always like evolving and expanding. But in terms of comedians who I've seen live who happen to be female that have made me like cry from laughter, I think Sam J is definitely up there. I saw a set of hers during the 2022 Netflix is a Joke Festival here in LA. And a lot of that material ended up, I think, in the most recent special that she put out. And yeah, it's hard to choose one, in the same way that it would be impossible to choose like a favorite male comedian. I think there is a lot of great stuff happening despite the like Joe Rogan and podcast verse of it all. There's so much great comedy happening right now. But yeah, this one's a tough one to answer. If you haven't seen any of Sam J's specials, or she had a show called Pause, please watch all of it. Next, is the color beige the beigest color? I like this brain twister of a question. Yeah, probably. Or like different sub beiges of beige that are especially beige, like the color of grass fed butter, or the color of a golden doodle dog, or the color of unseasoned cooked chicken. All of those shades of beige that are especially beige. Next, somebody asked, what is a great passion fruit perfume for everyday wear? I love this question because I recently smelled one at Ulta. That's not like $100. That I think is a lot more accessible, both from like a fragrance and a price point. And that is one from Pacifica. It's literally just called passion fruit, which you can find, I'm going to say Ulta because that's where I saw it and where you should look for it, because I know they also sell them at Target, which we're boycotting. Actually don't even know if they have this, but yeah, it's just called passion fruit and I think it's less than $30. So check that one out. Anyway, next, least liked kids' names because of teaching or from life in general. Um, that's so funny. Anyone who has like taught or worked with kids, like, they end up having associations with certain names. Um, and this is no shade to this name in particular, but there were so many Masons in different classes that I had. Some Hunters too. But yeah, Mason is like, that's not a name. It's not something that I would name my future hypothetical son. But it is a name where they're, not 100% positive association with that name, at least in the classrooms that I was in. Anything about your bird? I want to know a side quest on the chirps. His name is Maui. He is 8 years old. He is a Gemini Sun, Virgo Moon. He is, if you care, he is a white-faced cockatiel, which means he doesn't have the cheeks, the little rosy cheeks that the cockatiels normally have. But I do not hold that against him. He has the sweetest personality. He's my little clown. He loves Japanese sweet potatoes specifically, not the orange kind. I've tried. And his playlist of favorite songs ruins my Spotify Wrapped every year. But he's so adorable that I'm okay with it. I forgive him. There was a couple, when I was picking him up from boarding one time, there was a couple that was also at the pet store and they had never seen a like grayscale cockatiel before. And they're like, oh my God, it's black and white. He looks like an old-fashioned cartoon, which is so funny to me. And I told that to my brothers, and then they started calling him Steamboat Maui. That's him. And you've probably heard him in the background of something I've recorded.
Microtrending.
Anyway, I wish I could answer even more of these, but I know that if I did, this episode would be like 2 hours long, and that's a lot. Thank you so, so much again for your questions. I am going to save them for next time. Thank you so much again for listening and for being here. As always, feel free to comment. As always, appreciate the likes, the shares, the subscriptions, the comments. All of it means a lot. Really appreciate the support. And as always, you can DM me or you can email me. I am at saltlacroix on all platforms and saltlacroix@gmail.com. And now I am also on Substack, also Salt LaCroix. But the Substack again is called Salt on the Table. So if you haven't subscribed to that yet, you can do that as well. And I think that's all. Stay unapologetically sexy, no matter what Victoria's Secret is telling you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Microtrending.